Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, what
absolutely.
I was gonna say is you also got to think about the point of digestion from a consumer standpoint. Is like one of the main points of when people really connect with a song. You know, A, maybe when they're making love. B, maybe when you're like in the car. But C, like when you in the club. We need R&B back in the club a little
That's
bit more.
right.
These DJs need to start playing. Well, we need to be creating a little bit more up tempo R&B.
Absolutely.
Number one. But these DJs need to, you know, what I'm saying, you know, take these R&B songs and play them in the club a little bit more.
Yeah.
I miss hearing that a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I miss hearing R&B songs in the club. Like Jagged Edge used to have. That's like I said, one of my favorite groups. They stayed in the club.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he said, no, not condoning what Kel did, but Kel stayed in the club. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I said, Jeremiah before, they stay in the club. Like people like Usher, you know what I'm saying? Chris, they stay in the club. So we need more of that stuff going on. I think that would also help people wrap their arms around it.
Can we talk? Can we talk? Can we talk? R&B.
What's up? What's up? It's your boy Ian Vaughn, the R&B ambassador. Listen, I apologize for the interruption, but I need you guys to help us continue to grow this channel. We're doing such a fantastic job growing, bringing you amazing content from some of our favorite R&B artists and contributors. I need you to do this one little thing: like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe is key. Also, hit the notification bell. This will help us to continue to bring more and more fantastic artists to the platform. So with that said, this is a continuing conversation. Can we talk R&B? Now back to the show. What's up? What's up? It's your boy Ian Vaughn, the host of the Can We Talk R&B podcast. I am your R&B ambassador. And this is our first time having an actual repeat guest or repeat artist on the show. So this is very important because I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about the new music that was going to be coming, and it's almost here. So none other. We got my man Drew Love. We got Dante in the building. Together they are known as They. What's good, fellas?
What's up? How you doing, man? Good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys, bro. Like, I've been sitting just riding, and of course, I'm seeing the new promo and the new visuals you guys are rolling out for the project. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, man. Shout out our boy Crash, man. Always with the cold visuals, man.
Yeah,
and
David Maxwell as well. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we got a nice little team around us this time, helping to bring everything to life. So it's been great.
Yep.
So let's talk about the album. I mean, so the name of the album is
Love Jones.
Love Jones.
Yeah.
Perfect name.
Exactly, right? And coming out on Valentine's Day.
Perfect date.
Perfect time for the perfect album, man. I mean, I feel like this time we just really wanted to focus on, obviously sonically we wanted to like focus on like re-energizing and re-showing our creative chemistry that we have for each other, but thematically we definitely wanted to just focus on black art, real black music, you know, real and just our innovation that we have that we bring to the R&B world. So I feel like this album kind of puts all that together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think last time we spoke also, I was, I guess, talking about like how you guys felt like musically Jodeci and you know coming from that type of your pedigree. When I listen to some of the singles straight up, I feel like I'm hearing that type of vibe on the song. Like, let's talk about like, I guess, first of all, the process of putting this album together. I guess since we seen each other last, that's pretty much what you guys been doing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I mean, this project we kind of approached it a little differently because you know a lot of times we'll go out and we'll do writing trips or you know we'll try to bring in some other people or whatever. This project, and I think the name is kind of a testament of this as well. It's really just Drew and I, a couple friends. Every single song was made in our studio. I'm sitting in the same chair, same sense. But it's really just kind of like strip it back. I got the extra stuff that, you know, obviously it's good to bring in different collaborators and stuff. But also, too, like, there's just a certain essence that Drew and I have together when it's just us two and there's nothing to get in between it. So, you know, really on this project, like, that was the number one focus. It's just like kind of strip it back, everything, get back to the core of who we are, who they is, you know, just, you know, and trying to find new ways to push forward the sound as well. Obviously we did a lot more like sample driven stuff, a lot of like soul samples, a lot of samples that we created ourselves, and, you know, just trying to, you know, kind of create this thing. It's also kind of like a homage to like Chicago R&B at its core. So, you know what I'm saying? Just really trying to find a way to bring that into 2025. That was always like the ultimate goal throughout that.
Yeah. So what made you guys choose Valentine's Day as the release date?
I mean, it was something I always wanted to be able to do, just like, because we're R&B.
Yeah.
You know, I consider myself a lover boy, so it's just like, I always wanted to be able to put something out, whether it was a single or whatever. But, you know, this album was actually supposed to come out a little earlier, but just the way that things worked out, you know, we ended up, just to have a little bit more lead time, ended up pushing it to February. And I was like, why not, you know, Valentine's Day? So I think it's just perfect for, you know, the themes that are going on in the music, and obviously it being called Love Jones, you know what I mean? And there being a lot of, you know, romantic, you know, type of language in there, confident sexual energy in the music. So I just felt like Valentine's Day was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nah, I mean, sometimes the universe just like gives you a good alley-oop too, you know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, cool, we finally got it finished, and then okay, Valentine's Day is on a Friday. So just the way everything lined up too is like, all right, this is telling us something. This is what we need to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it was just announced Drake and Party.
Yeah, for sure.
Project coming out on the same day.
We just found out.
I want to say it's one other artist. I can't think of him offhand. But did you feel any pressure in like, okay, we drop it on the same date as someone like Drake? Is that a concern? Or?
Initially, when I found out about it, we was on the plane here, and we found out about it. We were just both looked at each other like, bro, come on. But then I was like, okay, honestly, this is going to bring more attention to the situation, because more people going to be on them streaming services looking for that project, so they going to ours hopefully sitting right next to it, so you give some people that may not have listened to it before that are now gonna, you know, put their ears on it. So yeah, I look at it as a blessing at this point. Yeah.
Talk about the process in terms of like, you guys wrote out 3 singles so far. Choosing, Straight Up, and what's the first single you guys?
Diamonds and Pearls.
Diamonds and Pearls, man.
Yeah.
Diamonds and Pearls. That's hard. That's hard. Yeah. So talk about the process. Like, okay, album's done. Like the rollout. There's a lot of younger, newer artists that are, I'm saying younger, but just newer artists that are watching like how to roll out a project. You know, and I looked at, I mean, I've been having conversations with so many different people, and I've actually used you guys as references. Like, yo, man, have you seen they's rollout? Like, you guys have multiple visuals for each song, and I think that gets a lot of attention, and that's kind of the new wave. Can you talk about like the process with all that?
Yeah. So, you know, I think honestly, we don't really get a good framework on what the album's gonna be until probably like 4 or 5 songs in. Then that's when my mind starts spinning of like, okay, cool. Like, I always believe that you give something a name first, and then you kind of work your way down from there. So we settled on Love Jones. That was actually one of like, when we was first about to come out, that was actually one of the first like alternative names. Like, well, maybe we could go, but we ended up going with They, with, you know, no regrets on that front. But it always stuck in my mind. That's actually a dope name, for like a project. So once we started doing that, you know, then the more inspiration started going. You're like, okay, what does it feel like? What do you want it to look like? What do you want people to see when they listen to this music? Or what do I see? What's the picture that we want to paint? So for me, once we were about 4 or 5 songs in, I started thinking about a particular time in my life personally when I was living in Chicago, or, you know, taking a lot of trips to Chicago. My mom's from Chicago, so I have like a whole side of family up there. And during this time, I would say it was like 2003 to 2006, I was just going up there probably like every other month. So this is also the time that, like, you know, Kanye's coming out, Twista's having his resurgence, like, and then they're also paying homage to like Do or Die, people like that. You know what I'm saying? Then another guy who I always admire, but we won't talk about him today. Another Chicago guy. But those are always like really big inspirations for me. You know what I'm saying? So like, to be able to pull that and put it into the music. And then I'm also thinking, well, what are those settings like? So, you know, like I said, I spent a lot of time at my aunt's house, and up in her house, you know, they would always have like this black art, and I would just everywhere. And I got like 4 aunts, so every single one of them would have different black paintings and stuff up. And one thing that I always loved was like how they were faceless. There'd be like, you know, black figures where they'd be dancing or, you know, in a home setting or whatever, but a lot of times they didn't have the face on there. So I was like, you know what, like that's a really good direction for the art. And then with the visuals too, man, it's like, you know, we came up in the era where it was like the big video, the big production or whatever. But that's just not how things are consumed. You know, we've done that whole thing where we made a big lavish video and then it's just like, okay, it's out, and then what, you know?
That's right.
So you almost have to kind of recalibrate. You can still do really cool things. I think a lot of times people look at like TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff and they're like, oh, I have to do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But also too, it's just like a means for people to consume things.
Yep.
And they want to see something new. I don't think people stop liking dope stuff.
That's right.
So then you start figuring out a way, okay, how can I take this in a format and make it the same aspirations I had when doing a cool video, but like just break it down into different pieces and build the story over a course of weeks instead of just one moment.
Absolutely.
So, you know, just like Drew said earlier, we linked with Crash, David Maxwell, and then shout out my boy Christian who did the art. But yeah, and then at that point, then you got the connective tissue of everything speaking the same language. But I think you got to break up the moments a lot more and just continue to keep people on their toes, you know, throughout the entire process.
I think everything you guys are doing is world class. And I'm seeing like even other artists that have big budgets, or I would say who has a big budget today, but reasonably a bigger budget on labels, and their rollout isn't as clean.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like the music might be amazing.
Yeah.
But then it's like where the visuals, where it's just the way we consume. The marketing matters.
No,
100%.
I mean, bro, we 4 albums in. This will be our 4th album, and I think that if you're not learning from each one, and also too peeping what the consumer wants and how people are consuming things, and like it gets easy, like, and it's unfortunate too, bro, because like we know how much time we put into this stuff as artists. Like you put so much time and energy, like. At this point, I think and both of us really sat back. Like this time around, we really want to just switch up the approach without compromising the vision at the same time. So, you know.
There's I guess, and just to that point, just to, I guess, to button that up, we all consume our phones mostly, and I'm saying 96, I think the statistic is like 95, 96% of the time, our phones are vertical. So people are shooting these big screen videos. Most people don't even have time to turn their phone horizontally.
And they too lazy.
I was reading this statistic the other day, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So we see all these rollouts, and you see multiple visuals. It's all set up for Reels. It's all set up for TikTok or Instagram or however you consume it, or YouTube Shorts or whatever. So that's dope. You guys are on point with that. Yeah. So
thank you, bro.
In terms of let's talk about the process. Well, we talked about the in terms of why the album, but in terms of the single rollout and what can we expect with the rest of the project?
Well, I mean, I think as far as the order of why we chose the way Straight Up personally is my favorite song on the album. Next to this, another song on there called Gemini that people will get a chance to hear. But I just think that we just picked the songs that we felt the strongest about. You know what I mean? I think Diamonds and Pearls and choosing it ended up being like kind of a watershed moment for us in the creative process. Like that's when we felt like, okay, now we feel like we really got something. We got the meat of the project, and we feel like we know where the direction is. Yeah. So I felt like that was a good one to be second. Diamonds and Pearls was one of those first moments as well where we felt like, okay, we kind of struck gold on like a sound, and we can kind of follow that. So that's why those ended up being the first two. And then Straight Up, to me, is my favorite. So I was like, we got to fit it in there somewhere in the single rollout. So that's
low key, even with Diamonds and Pearls, like we had teased it like just on a whim a few months before. And I mean, for that entire time between when we teased it and when it dropped, like every single day, people were just asking, "When's Diamonds and Pearls drop? When's Diamonds and Pearls?" So, like for sure, I knew I was like, "Yo, we got to come with that one first. That's got to be the joint that comes first." But after that, bro, like, I mean, I say this, and you know, some people get it, they don't, but I don't really make music for other people. You know what I'm saying? I make music for that I want to hear. Yeah. Like I make the art that I want to see. Come on. And you know, so at the end of the day, it's like I know everybody gonna gravitate towards different stuff, but you gonna feel the strongest and get behind something the most whenever it's like something that you passionate about. And I feel like when it came to Straight Up, like I felt like I actually could see it in certain people, like if you got it, if that song click with you, you were like addicted to it. Because you know I got a SoundCloud link where I'll be like, yo, check stuff out, and I can see who's playing what. Yeah. And I remember low key, the dude who does our art, I sent him the whole album. He's like, yo, this Straight Up, man, it's crazy. I look like 4 or 5 days later, he played it like 70 times.
Wow.
he played. I was like, okay, like, and I kept seeing that same thing happen. Where it's like, if that song clicked with you, it was like addictive. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I feel the same way. I done played this thing 1,000 times. So I'm right there with you, bro. So.
I know my wife plays it. I mean, I play it a lot, but she plays it all the time. Like, I mean, so if I mean, she's. I don't know. I'm not sure if she's listening to on Spotify or Apple, whatever. But if you could see that metric, I know. New Orleans she's spiking the numbers up. No, for sure. But so, you mentioned Chicago, you know, as an inspiration in terms of this particular sound, this project. And you didn't say his name, but I'm gonna say it, Kels, right?
Yeah,
so
no,
we think
real talk. We can say it.
We think about Kels as, you know, as an artist and a creative, as one of our greatest of all time.
Yes,
and what he's contributed musically. You mentioned Twister. I think about guys like Avant. You know,
Jeremiah for me.
You know, Chicago has definitely put out a lot of amazing talent throughout the years. Can you get into detail of how you know, I guess extrapolated that feeling?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, when you referencing Chicago R&B, like there's different eras, right? So, you know, for Kels, and I you know, he did what he did, and that's that. But I'd be lying if I said that he wasn't one of the biggest inspirations for me when it comes to R&B. Like, just how he continuously just reinvented himself, and, you know what I'm saying, all the different eras and stuff. One of the greatest writers of all time. Like I said, don't condone anything that happened. But
but creatively.
Day, but like, you know, you can't deny the impact that he had for years.
That's right.
You know, so just the way that his storytelling ability, all that stuff, like, you know, the way he was like smooth but at the same time like witty, like that was always a reference. But I think a big part of it sonically comes like a little bit later. Like I said, specifically with Twista, even on the joint, like Straight Up, like I remember when we first did that joint, I was sitting up in the studio, I was like, bro, we gotta get Twista on this joint. We gotta get Twisted. But between him,
that'd have been crazy.
Do or Die, you know what I'm saying? I love Do or Die. And then one of my,
you wanna ride?
Yeah, bro. Even when we was filming the visuals, we kept me and David kept saying, no, it's got to be about that parking lot pimping. That's what the whole thing's got to feel. So, you know, but also too, you know, Donnell Jones at the same time was one of my favorite. You know, Where I Want to Be is he's from North Carolina. I think.
North Carolina, really?
Yeah. Original, or maybe he did grow up in Atlanta. But Donnell was, you know, that Where I Want to Be album is one of the best R&B albums ever made too. So
no questions.
When you start peeling back the layers, bro, like you really realize like, yo, there's so many dope artists, and a lot of them, especially male R&B artists that came out, and they just always had that like confidence and like that kind of bravado to the music at the same time. And I think that's what I always just gravitated towards, especially when it comes to like male R&B. I like dudes who like kick that real stuff, but at the same time, like, you know, can get sensual at the same time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and then when it comes to the production front, like you can't think about Chicago music from that era without the soul sampling,
for sure,
and the samples and the way that they were flipping it and everything. So, you know, once we started kind of getting into that bag a little bit more, I was like, yeah, we're pulling from like a real direct source here, you know?
Yeah. So aside from that, okay, I think about the different eras of sound, definitely in soul music, R&B music, you know, and I'm gonna take the 70s out of it because we just can't. It's just too much.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So when you think if you think about the 80s, who were some of your inspirations, you know, male or female, in R&B music of that decade?
All right, so I mean, obviously you got to name off like the top of the top. So Michael Jackson,
I was gonna say
Prince.
Prince.
But I'm a lot of people, you know, they love 90s R&B or 70s R&B. I'll be real, 80s R&B is my favorite era. Like
Bobby Brown.
Yeah, so you know, you start off early with the Gap Band, Cameo. I love Cameo.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Ready for the World. I love Ready for the World. And then Alexander O'Neal.
Hell yeah.
Anything produced by Jimmy and Terry, like that, they're still to this day like my favorite producers, like the arrangements. And then you get into that New Jack Swing era. That's when you get into Guy, Bobby Brown, you know, New Edition, obviously. So yeah, the 80s R&B, just the way it evolved, like, and the way that they were using the synths and the technology and stuff like that. I feel like once Teddy Riley came, like he just put it all together
Right.
into one package. But also too, you know, and then he got disrespected the other day, but Babyface came out of that era
Absolutely.
too. So between all the songs that he was writing for everybody, like I don't know, there's just so much to pull from.
We have to always
Lionel?
remember
Yeah.
Luther Vandross.
Yeah.
Luther.
Vandross,
Yo, I was
we
just
can't-
talking to my
yeah.
dad about
Yeah.
Luther, man, because they just made the documentary
That's
that
right.
came
Yeah.
out.
Shout out to my guy Phil.
Yeah.
They that documentary was amazing. If you hadn't seen
Yeah.
it, it's amazing. You know who also gets overlooked? I don't know why all of a sudden, but Keith Sweat.
Oh
Keith
wow,
Sweat, yeah. I feel like, man, people
Forgot
they
that was
like
80s.
try to pare down his whole legacy into like,
Yeah.
oh, he was begging. I was like, man, he did a lot
Who-
more than begging. He had bangers, bro. Like, fuck.
Bangers.
Yeah,
man,
like
I'm
really
talking
like
about-
when I was thinking about that, I've had this conversation. I'm like, in the 80s, I mean, when it came down to that style of R&B, because
Yeah.
that was the New Jack Swing.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily compare him to like an Aaron Hall vocally specifically.
Yeah.
But in terms of his music, he might have, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
Keith Sweat might have the best catalog in that style of R&B music of the time. Maybe.
The thing is, too, that people overlook, he was like the first.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Like he was with I Want Her and stuff like that. That came before My Prerogative. That
That's
came
right.
before the rest of New Jack
Yeah.
Swing sound. So like he was one of the first ones that actually even came out.
Make
with
It
the
Last
sound.
Forever?
Make It Last Forever, bro. Like he was just hitting from the jump.
And his pen is crazy.
Yeah, he wrote Just Got Paid, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
He wrote that. I didn't
Just
even know
Got
that
Paid.
until
He
like
sure did.
a year
That's
ago.
crazy. I didn't know he wrote that.
Yeah, he wrote
sure
Just Got
did.
Paid as well.
That's
With
crazy.
Teddy Riley.
Man. Yeah, they were. Yeah. I mean, I always like I guess I've been having these conversations recently, and I'm like, we can't forget about Keith Sweat. Keith Sweat is one of our goats. So of the 90s, now, so we talked about the 80s of the 90s. Like, obviously, I know one is Jodeci. We've talked about that
Obviously.
before.
Yeah, for sure.
But we think, what other artists of the 90s that you would rank in terms of big inspirations?
So I'll say Kels for sure.
Yeah.
I'll say Kels.
I was gonna say that, but we already talked about it.
Yeah. Silk.
Okay,
yeah.
that's
I love
nice.
Silk was hard.
Keith Sweat introduced
Keith
him?
Sweat
Yeah,
again.
no, 100%. Another
Into the 90s.
Another branch off of that tree. Yeah, I mean that was such a great era for groups. Too,
Yeah.
you know
Oh,
what I'm
man.
saying. So you got 112,
Drew Hill.
Yeah, Drew Hill, Jagged
Jagged
Edge.
Edge.
Yeah.
Boys to Men.
Yep.
You know, Usher.
Yeah.
Also, too, man, there was a lot of great, female groups as well. SWV,
Oh, no question.
Heck
TLC,
yeah,
Crazy
TLC.
Sexy Cool album. Still, honestly, I was telling somebody this the other day. Like, I went back and listened to What About Your Friends, and I was really thinking, I was like, yo, this might be one of the best beats I've ever heard. Like, I don't even understand how Douglas made that track.
Yeah.
So, honestly, man, I always looked at 90s R&B, bro, where like that was one of the most innovative times
Yeah.
where like not only was it like on a commercial level it was hitting, but also
Yeah.
like on an innovation and just sonic level. Like I feel like the R&B from the 90s was better produced than like the rock albums from the 90s as well. And I know that sounds like an absurd statement, but
Not
like,
really.
it was so innovative. It was just constantly being reinvented year after year after year, and just like, especially once the Bad Boy sound kind of came into effect too. That just pushed it like even further.
Yeah.
Like the production value matched like the commercial success. Like it was
Yeah.
just hitting across all fronts. You know.
I think a part of that, I mean, is the masterful musicianship
Yeah.
of the guys who were taught by the guys from the 70s,
Exactly.
80s. And then they're mastering now sampling.
Yeah.
So you have a combination of you sampling these sounds, you have these hip hop drums, you have these, so, back then it was all live kicks, and now you got this heavy hitting bass kick or whatever.
Yeah.
All of those things together. And of course, the songwriting and so forth is what makes the 90s so innovative and special.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
With hip hop coming in. So 2000s.
2000s. Now, I mean, we still got some of those same people kind of carried over.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about somebody outside of that, I mean, somebody we didn't necessarily mention before, which is probably more in the 90s, but like, Brandy.
Of course.
Brandy, Monica, both
Full
of those
Moon
two.
album came out 02, so
That's what I'm saying. That's just like a carryover there.
Never Say Never was like 98.
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of on the fringe of both. But Brandy's one of my favorite.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Who else? Cisco coming out of the Drew Hill situation. I definitely like Cisco.
No, for sure.
Yeah. The Dream.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
No,
Dream for
to
sure.
me, and you know, I'll just piggyback off that. And I think I mentioned this last time. The Dream is like one of my favorite artists of all time. And like, honest to God, I would say that the Love Hate album, I'd say it's one of the best albums. Like, I don't know if I can name a better album, if I'm just being honest. Like, and that's just my personal opinion. I know I'm wrong, but like, I put it up against any album ever made. Like, if I'm being real.
Yeah, that's pretty
like,
crazy.
Any
Crazy
Kanye
statement.
album, any Beatles album, like, I think that album is right up there. I mean,
Over,
I know it's a bold
over
statement.
MJ Off the Wall.
I think it's one of the best albums ever made.
I ain't mad.
Top
Look,
to
look,
bottom.
I ain't mad.
I get it. I get it. There's other great albums. I also don't believe that album gets enough credit
It's a great album,
for
for
what
sure.
it did. Not only just for like production wise, because obviously that's like peak Tricky and Dream,
Yeah.
like their era, but also too just like I think that in my mind, like I guess maybe slight toxic R&B was like out of style, and he brought it back with like full force. So I feel like from there, that's where you get Drake, you know, doing more like R&B that's a little more cocky. I feel like that's where you get Jeremiah and Ty Dolla $ign and that next little wave of R&B, or even somebody like The Weeknd, you know, where you talking about like, and you're not afraid to swear or curse or whatever, or be hard. Like I just feel like that album was like a big bang moment, and I don't think it gets enough credit.
I'm not mad at that.
You know who we missing from this 90s, 2000s? Gotta put Joe in there.
Of course.
Gotta
Joe
put
for
Joe
sure.
in there, man. Joe, absolutely gotta put Joe. Mario Winans.
Yeah.
Who am I missing? What else things?
I mean, it was so many.
It's just so many, yeah, it's just
Joe's
so
like
many.
one of my favorites of all time, and I personally think he's, you know,
Avant. Sorry.
Avant was crazy.
Avant. Yeah.
Avant was crazy. I personally think Joe is like one of the best male, not just artists, but vocalists of R&B.
No,
You know,
absolutely.
in the higher tier of all the greats that we can think about. So I guess I'm asking all those questions to get to this. So a lot of R&B, you know, and I'm having these conversations as well. How important is it to be a star? I mean, or like, you know, in the game, you know, you mentioned a minute ago that you make music that you like.
Yeah.
So how important is it to be a star or a superstar to you today?
I don't think it's that important, man. To me, I personally, and it's not even just speaking for him, but it's just like I'd much rather just inspire. You know what I mean? If I can make music that inspires somebody, whether it is to create other music or whether it's to do something else or just something that could be the soundtrack of somebody's life or inspire them to do something, that's the reason I do it. And then just to also be proud of what I put out there at the end of the day, so that when the day that I die, like I could be happy with the stuff that I made at the end of the day. Like that's more important to me than having to be this A-list person or be like whatever, you know what I mean? I mean, I love performing and I love to have a crowd, but I don't necessarily need all that to suffice or to make myself the validation. I don't need the validation. Yeah.
Right. You know, it's interesting, man, because like I feel like what's asked of a star, one, when you look at like the top of the top, we talk, you know, Beyonce, you know, those type, like they're not playing the game. You know what I'm saying? And they're maintaining that aura, that mystique, whatever. But also too, even in the social media age, like even certain tactics or certain things that you would look for, let's say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't really feel like it matters. We was talking the other day about trolling and how like trolling in 2018, that stuff doesn't work now in 2025. It's not going to resonate. People be like, nah, that's corny or that doesn't work or whatever. I'm not buying that. So I feel like being a star is the same thing, bro. Like it evolves. It's also like reflective of the time period. Like, you know, I can remember during the SoundCloud era, it was just like, you know, everybody had dreads and tattoos and that's just with face tats and you know, that's just what it was. And like 5-6 years later, you don't see really too much of it at all.
Yeah.
But also I think that, and I could be wrong, you know, I could look up a year from now and be wrong, but I also feel like we're getting to a point where people are really kind of recentering it back on the art and the music, and less so on like, no, I want to know what you ate for breakfast, and I want you to entertain me, like, because trust, bro, we heard all that stuff. As we've been rolling out albums over the years, like they want to see what you wake up and do and walk your dog. I'm just like,
we've never
first
really
of all,
been that
I don't like to see that. I don't want to know that about artists. I just want to hear the music, see some visuals,
that's right.
and hear some interviews and see if they got something to say.
Yeah.
Like outside of that, like I don't care what you ate for breakfast.
Yeah.
But I also feel like that got so oversaturated.
Yeah.
And things move fast, bro. It's just like, we in an algorithm world, so it's just like once that it gets patched, like it's on to the next thing. You know? So what worked 6 months ago ain't gonna work now. So I think, man, at the core, you just got to be authentic.
That's right.
And you got to come off authentic, and and that has to be across everything, through the music, through how you present yourself on socials, through the visuals that you make. Like I do feel like people are naturally perceptive of being deceived or if something is fake. Like it doesn't matter what your background is. Like I think just as humans, like we can pick up on that. So that's the number one thing that we try to focus on, especially as we've gotten all the bad advice over the years. Just like, you know what, that should be us. And that's gonna work. That's gonna have to work.
It's gonna have to work.
Yeah.
I love that. I think about one of my favorite artists new artists that's come out in 2024, Doechii.
Yeah.
And Doechii's just authentic.
Yeah.
That's just her, right? So she's telling her story on the album. I don't know that any of the songs are hits in terms of radio hits, but who cares? Like the story of the album is crazy. All the songs, she's an amazing rapper, singer, and just talent. And she's telling her story, and now she just won a Grammy for Best New Artist, I believe it was.
It was a rap album.
Best rap album. Yeah. So she's just, she's telling her story. And when to your point about being authentic, I think that's what makes a star.
Yeah.
No,
when you're
for
just
sure.
being authentic to yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
No, like I said, it's a timeless thing, and as much as we got kind of skewed to a point where like, oh no, like you gotta have this persona and this is what the fans want. It's like the fans want you in whatever capacity that is, or whatever the actual real version of that is. So it's just finding a way to make it come across without feeling like it's canned or something like that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So how important is it to tell a story of an album? This album, Love Jones, that you guys, I look at, we talked about the Love Hate album from Dream. That album told a story.
No, 100%.
I mentioned Off the Wall, Michael Jackson. The album told a story.
Yeah.
What story does Love Jones tell?
I think that because there's definitely been most albums where I was like very intentionally trying to tell a story. And I think that on this one, I don't know if there's like a theme, more of so as like a texture and a vibe that we tried to set from the jump. Like I said, the number one thing is that it's just black art, pushing black art as much as we can, pushing the boundaries of what could be black art, because a lot of times we come up with something and then somebody else will come in and take it, and now it's not ours anymore. Like it could be rock, it could be R&B, it could be rap. It doesn't matter what it is. We got some song, the last song in there, it's like half rock, half the country, and there Rascal Flatts, harmonies and stuff on there. So I think that's the overall theme. I put it simply, I just wanted to make some good love making songs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's it. But I think, go ahead.
To balance off of what he's saying, I think, lyrically, thematically, it tells like the different phases of love. Like you got the, you first meeting somebody, you infatuated. You got the part where you're kind of bitter and scorned. You got the part where you're, songs where you feel like this person playing you and like I'm done. You're not able to play me no more. And the part where it's like, damn, you broke up and you missed this person, or it's like, dang, you driving me crazy, but I can't let go of you type of thing. And then you got this pure sexual, type of song. So it's different phases of love with throughout the whole thing. But I think almost, if not all of them, are talking about that in some type of way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I said, I think even too when you're working on the visuals and the art and everything like that, because you can want to tell a story, but whether that translates it's up to the audience. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm happy too when as songs are coming out and when people hear the album and they get that background or they get a little bit of insight, they're like, no, I get it 100%. That's what I was hearing.
Absolutely.
So
in terms of, I guess this is something this is a question I'm just thinking about off my head. With the album itself, are you guys, again, the approach of multiple visuals between each song. Are you guys planning to do that with each song on the album? Is that something that, like, what is that about?
I mean, bro, we was doing that right before we got up here.
Yeah.
We constantly filming, man, because like
we definitely told ourselves we definitely want to have multiple pieces of content for each song on here, because it's like in the past, and it doesn't mean we'll never do it again, but in the past we spent a lot of budget on music videos and things like that, and it's just like you end up spending all that money and don't necessarily get the return on that, whereas you could sit there and shoot multiple pieces of short form content for way cheaper and make them all cooler and live in their own world and kind of engage people a little bit more. Because a lot of times people, I don't know a lot of people that, maybe I don't know, maybe not, I don't know a lot, but I feel like in general people sit there and watch 3-4 minute music videos less than they used to.
Yeah.
You know, people have shorter attention spans, so if they want to watch something, be done with it real quick. You know what I mean? So why not give them shorter pieces of content and continue to refresh the way that they look at the song? You know what I mean? You saw one video for Straight Up, and then this other one that gives you different vibes and makes you receive the song in different ways. So I just felt like that was a cool way. And then shout out Crash again and David for helping us to, you know, put those things together.
Yeah.
I know earlier on in your career you got an opportunity to tour with Bryson Tiller. Any new tours coming up?
We were just talking about it before with our manager here. We're trying to put something together for this year.
Yeah, we're figuring it out right now.
Gotcha. What do you guys think of Bryson's last album?
I thought it was good, man. I thought it was one of my favorites favorite albums that he's put out like recently, and
I enjoyed that album as well.
I thought it was really good, man.
I thought he was experimenting. You know, I mean, I think my favorite song he dropped, I can't think of the name of it, but
I like Attention.
Attention was my favorite.
And then Child.
Oh, Attention. Child is great. But what's the one with Victoria Monet? That one's
that one's really
Persuasion.
Good too. Yeah, Persuasion. That's a really good one.
Actually, I think our boy Yanni.
Shout out Child. Yanni. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he worked on that joint. So
nice. Yeah, I would love to see you guys. Another tour with you guys.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Collaborating.
We definitely.
That's our boy, man. It was always family. So
maybe
it's in the books one of these days.
Nah, for sure.
Yeah.
So in terms of like what can people expect? I guess the album's dropping on Valentine's Day. What's happening after that?
I mean, like I said, we putting something together to get some kind of tour thing going on. We definitely want to come and see our fans. There's gonna be merch that we're gonna be putting together. There's a vinyl coming with the album too, so we're finally doing a nice physical vinyl this time around. And obviously continuing to shoot more content, and we're getting back in the lab to put out another project this year. Hopefully, maybe like a Love Jones Volume 2, maybe.
Come on. Yeah, I think we still got a lot of ground to cover with this Love Jones world that we have.
Yeah. I love the concept.
Yeah, I think the people just need to stay tuned. You know, there's definitely a lot more to it than what's coming on Valentine's Day. We definitely gonna be building on it.
All right, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit.
All right.
This week is Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we have Kendrick Lamar's performing. I'm really looking forward to that. But we haven't had, we had Usher last year.
Yeah.
But we hadn't had an R&B artist, or a lot of R&B guys holding the flag. So, I mean, shout out to Usher doing it in 2024. Who would you like to see perform on the R&B Super Bowl stage representing R&B?
Man, I would love to see SZA up there. I was just talking.
She
to him
might pop up on stage tomorrow.
That's what I'm saying.
No, she gonna make.
I was just telling him in the car. I was like, she's probably my favorite female R&B artist right now that's making. And shout out to all the queens out there. There's a lot of great R&B artists out there on the female side and the male side. But like right now, she's probably the one that stands out to me, who I enjoy to listen to the most. Just the most unique, and just listen to her all the way from like the Babylon days and things like that. It's just like I've been a fan of hers. So it's just like I would.
What do you love so much about her?
She's just so her cadence and her flows, her lyrical ability, like her personality, the way she comes across. She's beautiful, like, you know what I mean. Just, everything that there's not really been an album where I didn't like a good 90% of the music that's on there. So,
she's got like
a
one-on-one approach.
Yeah,
I feel like you could play a beat and put 100 people in the room, and she nobody's gonna write a song that sounds remotely like what she writes. And I think that's a testament to her artistry as well. So I'm trying to think, man. Like I feel like we need, like Usher was a big moment, and I'm wondering if there's like an equivalent moment that somebody on his level, but I can't.
They gotta give my boy Chris Brown some love.
That's what I was about to say.
They gotta give my boy Chris Brown some love, bro.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. I mean, he's earned it. That man's work ethic is second to none.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm happy he just recently won his second Grammy.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, he's been due multiple Grammys, but obviously due to the tarnish, he has been ignored. But I'm happy to know that he just won another Grammy, and this tour he had last year with the 11/11 tour. I got a chance to go to that tour. One of the best tours, one of the best shows I've seen probably ever.
Yeah.
He's done the South Africa tour. I mean, he's been going crazy right now.
Yeah.
So I think I would love to see Chris Brown get the opportunity to do.
And no disrespect to Usher, and this is not even, but like Chris Brown's performance ability and his dance and sing ability on stage, it's right up there with Usher, if not better, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
feel me? So it's just like, if he can get up there and just, you know what I'm saying, give my boy Chris a chance. You feel me?
Yeah. I really hate to pit them against each other in that regard.
Exactly.
Because Usher has paved the way for Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
But Chris is elite. I mean, obviously he's one of the kings of this era.
Yeah.
And you know, he definitely deserves his chance to really show what he can do.
Yeah.
So we have the Super Bowl. We have we had the Grammys. We have the Super Bowl. I think about the Grammys specifically. The top categories, R&B is not being represented. You know, what do we need to do? And I'm talking about we as R&B culture. I mean, artists, whomever. What do we need to do to change that?
You know, that's a tricky question because the Grammys are so politically rooted that it's just like I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
All right, so, and we touched on this a little bit the last time that I was up here, but I think that over the past 5 or 6 or 7 years, like R&B has been kind of like, I don't know, kind of sectioned off into this thing where it's like there's real R&B, which is if you're doing something that's like derivative of like neo soul or whatever, versus, you know, like I guess more commercial sounding R&B. Now I think that because also R&B on a commercial level has been going down just a little bit here recently. I think that just as a community, we have to get more behind like more progressive R&B just in general. That's gonna push the envelope. That's gonna, you know, be able to be like commercially acceptable at the same time too. Because I feel like when you try to pare down and say that, oh, this is real R&B and it's neo soul definitely has its place, but it was never the most successful style of R&B. Like I don't think at any point.
No, right.
And while like maybe early on, like in the streaming era, there was like some big successes within that resurgence. I don't think that the average consumer wants to hear just that. You can have it out, but I think you have to balance it out with, just like we were talking about Usher. Usher couldn't, when you have Confessions, a diamond album. Like as much as to this day we sing, you know, Superstar and Throwback and stuff like that, like the album cuts or deep cuts, 90% of people got there through they got there through Burn. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and through Caught Up and records like that.
Exactly. Those are the records that pull people in. But what I feel like I see a lot of times in today's landscape is that people don't support those records the same way, or you're not making R&B, or it gets shuffled off into pop, or it's not, you know what I'm saying? It gets like sectioned off into its own thing when it's like, yo, like Bobby Brown had how many number ones off of but it was up tempo. It was up tempo R&B. The same thing, all the stuff through the 90s, it was stuff that you could dance to. And I just feel like now when people have this concept of modern R&B, it's just too boxed into something that's not necessarily appealing to as many people. You know what I'm saying? So I think all of us have to be more open-minded when it comes to what we think is R&B and what we don't think is R&B, or what's pop or needs to live on a hip-hop playlist or whatever. You know, because it's all a part of it. Nobody thought like that in the past.
That's
you know?
right.
So I think that'll continue to raise the profile. There's so many talented artists out there that could take that next step.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? If we just kind of break down some of those walls, you know.
No, seriously. I mean, I think I guess me asking that question, and I love the answers. It's like progressive R&B. We need more we need more pop music.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, what
absolutely.
I was gonna say is you also got to think about the point of digestion from a consumer standpoint. Is like one of the main points of when people really connect with a song. You know, A, maybe when they're making love. B, maybe when you're like in the car. But C, like when you in the club. We need R&B back in the club a little
That's
bit more.
right.
These DJs
Yeah.
need to start playing. Well, we need to be creating a little bit more up tempo R&B.
Absolutely.
Number one, but these DJs need to, you know, what I'm saying, you know, take these R&B songs and play them in the club a little bit more.
Yeah.
I miss hearing that a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I miss hearing R&B songs in the club. Like Jagged Edge used to have. That's like I said, one of my favorite groups. They stayed in the club.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he said, no, not condoning what Kel did, but Kel stayed in the club.
in the
You know what I'm
club.
saying? Like I
Yeah.
said, Jeremiah before, they stay in the club. Like people like Usher, you know what I'm saying? Chris, they stay in the club. So we need more of that stuff going on. I think that would also help people
Yeah.
No,
wrap
absolutely.
their arms around it.
Because I think about like, what's my girl, Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, of course, Beyonce is kind of in a category of her own because
Yeah, for
she does really whatever genre she wants to do. Like you know, she has the authority to do that. But really, any artist should be able to say, okay, I'm not gonna narrow myself to just this style of whatever music,
No, for
whether it's
real.
R&B, whether it's, you know, you mentioned you have a song that feels like Rascal Flatts. I mean, you want to just be pure, just do the music that you like. So I think about artists like Billie Eilish and people like that. These are the ones, SZA also, but they get they'll be aligned in the biggest categories. But there's
Yeah.
so many other talented, like the Money Longs and you know,
Yeah.
the Lucky Days in my view, and people like that who I believe are making the type of music that should be able to be, you know, album of the year or record of the year in that category. You know, it's important. I think that we raise the bar as much as we can continuously.
Exactly.
No,
I mean, that's kind of why I touched on it, the political aspect of it before, not to get myself in trouble with anybody watching this, but it's like, you know, I feel like with the Grammys, like once you get yourself in this certain clubhouse,
Yeah.
like you get, you know what I'm saying? It's like almost like anytime you put something out, you're going to be like you said, that are making music that is to that level, but they haven't found themselves in that clubhouse, so to speak, to be able to like, I don't know, get into those categories or
Yeah.
get considered for certain things. So I
Absolutely.
think just be a little bit more open-minded, I think is really what it is.
I think one of the processes with the Grammys, obviously, it being voters that have the ability to do it, kind of to your point, once they see you already and you're on their radar, now they're checking for you because you know, like the fourth quarter generally is when all the artists who ever dropped albums are going on their Grammy campaign.
Yeah, no,
and,
for
and
sure.
now we want you to want to be visible so that the voters can see you. You know, and that's kind of like that's the loophole. Well, one of the loopholes, because now that they've recognized you, okay, we saw you. This other person who didn't get nominated, they didn't see them because they just didn't know they existed.
Yeah.
Didn't mean that they didn't deserve to be there, right? So it's a very interesting dichotomy with that. But I think about K-pop. This is a genre that's blowing up worldwide. It's black music.
Yeah.
It's black writers, black producers. I believe Teddy Riley is a part of, like, actually behind the scenes producing and writing this stuff. Do you have any thoughts on being and I guess, and just to make this statement full circle, Money Long recently had she posted, she was like, you know, the label called me, wanting me to write these songs for these pop artists, and they wanted these soulful songs, and I'm like, I ain't doing it or whatever. So, like, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that, do you have I guess a wall up or a guard up to where you aren't willing to do that
For K-pop stuff?
K-pop, I guess for pop artists as well, but for
Okay.
K-pop as well.
Well, I specifically work on a lot of K-pop. Like I've been doing that, you know, the past couple of years. Been going on to Seoul like a few times a year. It's just a burgeoning market, and there's a good money in it right now. And they do grasp onto a lot of what black culture is doing. Like, you know, they like a lot of what we did maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. That's like really what they're really embracing and want, like, you know, a piece of. But it's not that I would turn my back to it, but there are certain situations where It just depends on the situation, I guess. It depends on the artist. I have to feel like I have a certain connection to the music, or if I feel like I like them, or if I feel like something I would listen to, then yeah, I'm willing to give a helping hand to. But I don't know if I just want to throw my sauce anywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'll be real, bro. Because just like you said, it's case by case basis. But I don't like that. I don't like seeing it, because a lot of times, man, it can go beyond paying homage to the music into appropriation.
Yeah.
And appropriation with like the intent of like, oh, I think it's funny, or like it's like it's a novelty almost. And I think the main thing that I don't like is just the fact, obviously, like, you know, I'm Black American, grew up here my whole life. I've seen all the different stages, and I also see what we had to face. Let's say if you had cornrows back in the day, or if you had dreads, or if you had tattoos, or whatever, like, and we had to face the brunt of that, not only just aesthetically but musically too. Oh, well, that's just, you know, thug music, or that's just this, or that's just that. And to see, like, we had to face a lot of criticism, and still live with a lot of that criticism to this day, and had to go through struggles just to fight to have our voices heard, and showed up every time unapologetically, like, we're gonna be here as us,
authentically us, right?
Exactly. So I think the other the thing is I don't like it when they do it and they think they're like, oh, you know, like, I'm like, it's cosplaying, or like it's just like a novelty to it, but they don't face that same. They're never gonna look at an entire group of them as like, oh, you know, these are thugs, or these are, you know, whatever. And I think that there is, like, I think to a certain point, like I said, when it crosses that line, I'm for gatekeeping at a certain point, because, like I said, this is our culture. This is something that we've built, and, you know, to see other people try to monetize it in different ways. Now, when it comes to the music creating process, I love seeing, like, so many of my OGs, and, like, you know, shout out like JQ, my boy Dwayne, like, writers who are going over there and they're killing it. But sometimes when it comes to how it's presented in certain ways, or like, you know, somebody can rap like Meg Thee Stallion, but they'll never face the blowback and the scrutiny and the, you know, she's this, she's that a Meg would ever have to face for doing the exact same thing. And it's because, you know, it's different. Like, you know, people love to place that target on Black American culture, but at the end of the day, like, they also want to imitate it. They want the sauce and want to imitate it at the same time. So I was so glad to see Money say that. And shout out Priscilla, because she's a great person who always spoke from the heart.
No, absolutely.
And I was so glad to hear her say that, because I think we all, there's a lot of us that feel that way, but she was just unapologetic with it. But I do agree, like, at a certain point, we definitely do need to start, like, some gatekeeping, or at least not, you know, if something's over the line, we all gotta collectively come together and be like, nah, that's not cool. You know?
No, absolutely.
You know, it's kind of interesting, and I'm not gonna put any names of which company this was, because I'm not gonna get myself in any trouble, because I do work there. But I was working for a certain company, and there were some briefs for some of these artists over there, and under one specific artist, they were like, we want this, and this. Like, I think the reference was like Justin Timberlake and this person and this person. And then one of the things said, stay away from black sounding top line or black music type of shit. I was just like, what does that mean? And then, don't you understand that black people wrote these people's music that you're referencing? But then you want us to I was like, what does that mean? Stay away from black. I think it said black top line, black melody, black music type of. I was just like, what does that even mean? And you got me in this room working on this, looking at this brief. Like, are you that blind? That threw me off. Like, the rest of the day, I was definitely thrown off by that. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting.
This is kind of on subject, but it's a little bit different, because I don't personally feel this way about this artist, but I have to bring this up. So Joe Budden recently, there's a quote, well, it's a post that he's going viral talking about Bruno Mars.
Yeah.
And he does acknowledge how great Bruno is, and to me, Bruno is one of the greatest perennial talents of this generation as well.
Yeah,
agreed.
But he said, you know, obviously Bruno has the record with Sexy Red.
Yeah.
And I'm personally not a fan of Sexy Red.
Yeah.
But, you know, he was saying, oh, we don't want to hear this. And then he said he stole funk. He said he stole New Jack Swing, and he's using these words like he stole it. I'm like, how could he have stole funk when Bootsy Collins has christened them and named them Silk Sonic? You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know that I wouldn't agree that he's stealing anything. I think he's taking pieces of it, taking inspiration, and doing it in his own way. He's one of my favorite artists I've ever, like, you know, when we said 2000s, I should have said Bruno, because it's just, I think he's one of the best artists of our generation now.
For sure.
I can understand how, you know, maybe where he comes to that conclusion a little bit, and I'm not a personal fan of the Bruno Sexy record, but I love the Bruno Lady Gaga record. I think it's one of the best songs I've heard, like, in the past 6 months or so. But, you know, I wouldn't say that he's stealing anything. Like, if you're saying he's stealing anything, anybody who makes a song that's funk and gets big from it, you could say they stole it. Like, it's kind of a weird.
I couldn't think. I don't think Bruno is culture appropriate.
No, I'll say too. I don't agree with that, because I don't think that Bruno is stealing. Like, honest to God, like, I think that, especially because let's also take a look at what eras that he's taken from too. So, for instance, with a song like Uptown Funk, you know, that's like obviously derivative of like The Time, Cameo, like, you know, that type of vibe. But at the same time, like, that was also a period of time after disco where black music wasn't even on the charts.
That's right.
There was this like visceral response to where they basically shut out all the black music that was happening at the time, whether it was Gap Band or whatever. You go back in these timeless songs, like, let's say Outstanding or whatever, you go and you look at where it charts, you could have a #1 on the R&B charts and not be on the Hot 100.
Yeah.
And I feel like one thing that I appreciate, because I have a longtime friend, and, you know, I've been a Prince fan for my whole life, and he always would be like, I hate Prince. That stuff's weird, blah, blah, blah. He has weird taste. Yeah. But I remember when Uptown Funk came out.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, this is hard. And I was like, so you like Prince?
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, you like Prince? So he's like, oh, well, this is what it is. I was like, yeah. And I appreciate Bruno, because he is a point of entry on all these different things, to where, like, people would have forgotten it, low key. Or maybe that sound didn't get its shine, or maybe it got relegated to whatever. Also, too, like, even with, like, Finesse, I was so happy to see somebody do a New Jack Swing song, because so many people go, that's all this and that, like, whatever, it's irrelevant. Bro, he got a #1 off of a New Jack Swing authentic song.
That's right.
And that just goes to show, especially when people say, well, this is what the people want, or this sound is this, or this sound is that. This man can make any sound and it'll go #1, because if you do it well and you do it the right way, like, people will be into it.
And it feels authentic when he does it.
No.
It feels like I was
details
listening to this
are there.
music. I'm a fan of this. Right?
Every detail is there. Like, and I love, like, reading about his production process too, because I see a lot of similarities how I approach something, to where he'll be like, no, I want to change the drums. Like, he'll redo the drums 3 times, or, you know, I need to move this bridge here. Like, he's such a perfectionist with it that it never feels inauthentic or feel like, oh, you just, you know, got some groups together and stole something. I've never thought that way about it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So, Joe, we appreciate your contribution to music across the board, but Bruno is a real one.
Bruno, you can't really say nothing about that nigga. That flawlessly executes everything.
No, absolutely. So Love Jones, February 14th, Valentine's Day.
Yes, sir.
We're really looking forward to it. I'm super looking forward to it. I mean, I can't wait for it to drop. So we got a couple weeks out. So anything else coming that you want to introduce or let the audience know?
I mean, just stay tuned for Love Jones. Like I said, I think this is just the beginning of this era for us. So, you know, just stay tuned. We got more visuals coming. You know, we figured out touring, seeing what that's about to look like. So we not going anywhere this time. We staying solid.
Yeah, we staying solid. We staying active this time. So don't worry about it.
I love it, man. Look, it's been as always. This is a continued conversation. I have they in the building. I'm telling you right now, Love Jones is on the way. Peace.
Love Jones, baby.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.